we've been talking even before COVID. We had a few meetings, and initially I remember we were specifically talking about death row inmates and wondering whether we could have a program for arts for them and how do we go about this. Is it even possible? Yes, some prisons in India have done initiatives, but many of times, correct me if I'm wrong, there are like these spurts and starts. It happens for 1 month, 3 weeks, somebody does a workshop and goes back, and we were convinced that it can't be a feel good for us, and which goes back to her point that you center the inmate rather than your effort or yourself. And took many years of conversations, and very happy that the DIG presence here and the entire police department said we could try a long program, an 8-month program, where facilitators can go in and share art. There's one thing that was clear from my side from the beginning, is that this is not to be thought of a therapeutic or a healing in a specific sense process, because it comes baggaged with a lot of problematic ideas. And for me, it was very simple. Everybody has a right to art. It's very, very simple. It's not complicated. And that anybody in any space must have the access and, if possible, the tools to be able to express themselves through art. And art here I'm using in the widest sense of the word, not going to the technicalities of what is art and what is not art. And we said that's all we're doing. Whatever comes out of it, comes out of it. And I think it was wonderful that we both came with this very open idea that we're not there to change things. This other very, very scary thing is when you do stuff like this, you think you're changing something. No, actually, I'm sure all the facilitators will agree, we came out learning a lot. We came out actually being enriched. Something very selfish I'm saying here actually, but it's true. The interactions, every time you went into Pural, you came out thinking about a lot of things. The conversations were incredibly enriching. And honestly, if those walls were not there, they were exactly the people you meet in a tea shop or over dinner. This is exactly right. So I think even for us, the fact is you go there with a lot of tension. Let's be very clear. You go to the prison the first time, you are scared because of the impressions you have in your head. What is a prison? I mean, what are the kind of people there? And stereotypes, images. In a photographic exhibition, 2 things that are powerful: sound and images. Sound sometimes even more than images. But the image that you have of this idea of a criminal, right, is an evil person, right? And you go there honestly afraid. Then you realize the evil is actually you. It's not the person sitting there. And in many cases, and we've discussed this many times, is that one moment of somebody's life encapsulates the entire person, right? It's not very different from what happens on social media today. Just think about it. One statement that seems to be off, today we define the entire individual. How is this any different from the person on the other side of the prison? I think something for us to think about. I'll leave it there.
I just wanted to, something that you said about criminals being seen as evil and the image and sound of it. And so one small little anecdote, so I was doing research on mental health with death row prisoners, and I went and met a prisoner who had been sentenced to death. He was around 24 years old, a young boy. And I went in my head thinking, oh, poor guy, only 24, death row prisoner, poor guy. And he was speaking to me as if being really like funny and not answering my questions. And I was like, what is happening here? And slowly I realized what he was trying to do was to get me to see him as more than a death row prisoner, as more than that label, right? He's a prisoner, he's a person, and he has all the complexities and the annoyances of a 24-year-old boy. And I wanted to ask you, did you, in your interactions, do you have any stories like that where you were like, oh wait, what?
So first, the facilitators interacted much more than me, I have to confess. I did go in once in a while and see what was going on, but they were there pretty much thrice a week at times. But yes, many times the conversations were just very casual and very light. And often nobody tells you why they are there in there for, right? Slightly different from your situation where you're going with a thing, so you don't know. And then one inmate tells you their story. After you've had this lovely conversation, you're cracking jokes on the politics of today, you're saying all the, these certain normal things, and then that person tells you he is in there for X, Y, Z reason. And he's not going to get out, has not seen his wife for years, his wife has left him, and he wants to see his daughter. He's telling you this also not in the tonality that you expect. You expect, like a cinematic moment there, right? No. We are singing a song, cracking a joke, having some time, then says, this is what I've been here, I'm hoping like in 10 years I get out there. And you're thinking, the stereotyping of how emotions are expressed. Now, I can very easily judge that and, psychoanalyze it, right? But you don't do psychoanalysis. You just realize that this is just a continuum of that person. Both are that person. So there have been many interactions like that. And they would have seen, for example, some news report about me. And they said, Patra sir, Tivila Patra sir. And then he will crack a joke about that to me. Okay? And it was, like I said, if I did not go through that process of being checked, seen by a police guard, told that you're going to a place, remove your wallet, remove your phones, all this, it is like walking into a park. I'm not romanticizing it. Please don't think I'm romanticizing the prison. It's also true we don't see parts of the prison. As facilitators, we're only shown the nicer part. But all I'm saying is how we perceive the individual there, and that's what I'm trying to say. And it's very different from what we had. Like when we had the performance, you had the entire crowd going ruckus, dancing. And then the interesting thing happens. We all know the hierarchies and the violence of the prison. We all know all that is true and it's happening. At the same time, on the stage, there's a music performance and everybody is dancing. The police guard is also dancing. And then you're thinking yourself, okay, there's violence here. There is a very unequal, horrible thing happening there, which is not shown to me. But then there is this moment that something really crazy is happening. How does one even receive that? Or not judge it in any manner? I don't know. I really don't know.
Also, I think we all, even after working for 10 years in the criminal justice system, those preconceived notions and the media imagery of this is what a prison is, this is what a prisoner is, and you will be told that, rapists and murderers and killers, and all you meet is a person, and that's in a way quite unnerving. It's
unnerving even the person actually tells you that he's done that. It's totally unnerving, right? So this is what I did, and you're having this very normal conversation with this person. Yeah, it's
and it teaches us something about ourselves. And I wanted to also sort of maybe discuss about when you said about how when people go into prison to do art, it's like, let me teach you something. And then the prisoner might be like, okay, I'll get a certificate out of this, something will happen, right? And fair enough. But I think what was different with this program was not let me teach you something, but let's create something together. Are you interested in creating something, and how do you think that played out?
I think the one incredible thing we did before we even started this program is a whole day workshop with Superintendent Police, two of them, with Pere Devalan, who was in prison for 25 years or 24 years, an entire workshop that happened in private for all of us to understand what is a prison, to understand what does it mean to be in solitary confinement, to understand what is the different landscapes of people that you meet there. And I think that day really changed us, because still then I would confess that somewhere within our head there is this savior complex. I mean, we can't deny it. Somewhere that seed is always there, and privilege gives you that very ugly seed. I think that day was so important because we heard from different sides of the prison. Okay, we heard them interact too, right? And they were all not speaking the same voice. Even two superintendents of police were speaking different voices. I remember we had this long conversation about, we had many positives said, and then one superintendent came and said, listen, you can hear all this, but a prison is a prison. Remember that. And Ariva Perarivalan, really told us what it was there, what it meant to make music there, how there was a keyboard access, and what the keyboard meant. To be able to just play a keyboard for 15 minutes. What was it? Right? So I think that changed our attitude towards. So we actually went there with a blank slate, not knowing what was going to come of it. And I think that was the good thing about the way we began, because we began by saying, we are wrong.
Because I think just when you speak about privilege, also like T.M. Krishna is entering prison, and T.M. Krishna would be like, of course I will be teaching them, and the prisoners are also going to be like a celebrity has come, right? But to enter the space as I also don't know what I'm going to be doing, and for the prisoners to also be like, oh hey, I think it's new for all of us. I think it creates something really special. And one of the experiences we've had, and we use a lot of art when we are interviewing prisoners for our work, and we give them pencil colors, whatever. You draw if you can't talk or don't want to talk. And sometimes these are people who are for the very first time touching something as fundamental as a color pencil or a crayon. And these might be 50-year-old men who've never gone to school, who always worked in farms and find themselves in prison at this age. And I think something unlocks when you have a piece of paper and color, and you're not doing it to get a grade. You're not doing it to be praised. Why do you think that is? Why is there that certain childlike giddiness when just go ahead and do what you want?
With art especially, right? Yeah, so that's the tough thing about art. What is so special about it? So I think the better way I'd like to address that is to think about, okay, why did the human species create something called art? Maybe it's a philosophical question, but I think that's probably where we should go. And not to give you a long-winded answer, I think what we somehow figured, and I think we figured from the first time we tried to imitate something, whether it is visual or oral, is that we are not imitating. It's something we figured. What we are actually capturing, if I can use an abstract term, is the notion of an essence. Okay? So what you capture in sound, say I imitate a bird, a crow. I am not making the crow's music. I know it. Then what am I capturing? I'm capturing an essence that communicates with me, which means I'm abstracting something from that experience, whether it is sound, whether it is color, whether it is design. So you're able, and through that abstraction, there is a personal experience. I think that's what everybody has when they can pick up a crayon. So even if you draw that stupid palm tree, the only thing you learned in school, I'm one of those, that's why I'm very confidently saying it. Every time you do the palm tree, it's not the palm tree. I gotta know it. Right? But there is there's an essence of the idea of a tree that captures me. And in some way, I am speaking to that image. Or when I sing a song, or when I sing a tune, or even when I imitate imitation is actually a wrong word. We never imitate. No, it's semblance, if I can use that word. It's semblance. And semblance automatically means there's something unique about it, or something personal. So I think that we've captured. Now, just to maybe conclude quickly, is this whole idea of why should there be art in the prison, right? Should there be art? Why? Because this whole idea of the prison is true. I'm going to ask you one question is, we believe the prison is not society. In fact, one of the things we say is we send somebody to prison because that person is not fit to be part of society. That's the fundamental notion of prison. But is prison apart from society? Is a prison part of society? Because that can segue into why art should be there.
So, I think prison is society. It's just...
those big walls.
Yeah, so those big walls are like, the concept of upstairs and downstairs. The big walls are the downstairs, right? They are the discarded, you're not quite fitting in with my picture perfect image of the world. But they are there. They are like the abscesses in society you've thought that, how in criminal law particularly, judges love to use the word phrasing of illness and disease. And these prisoners are diseased part that you have cut out. but they're not. They are within us. And so for me, prison is society, except society is trying very hard not to acknowledge it. But how can you not? They're going to come back. They are coming from here. They're not being airdropped from some other place. So in that sense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you met any inmate somewhere else, you're just meeting another person. So the whole idea is that person becomes an inmate because you met that person in a certain location. So is the location that defines a person as an inmate? It's interesting, right?
It's also like labeling people per their, in a way, profession. You are a lawyer, you are a singer, you are an artist, you are an inmate. It's just one phase of your life.
Yeah, and also I think, if I can respond to why art needs to be, if you think of it, these separations which are vertical and horizontal in society, in different what do you say, degrees already exist. We already have different places for different people. In fact, we function as a society only because we make the differentiation. Certain people are not allowed in certain places. Certain people you keep aside in a certain place. An extreme idea of that is the prison, if you think of it. That's all it is, right? So for example, you can't enter the simple example. If you came in an auto rickshaw, you can't enter the airport. That's like a very basic idea. You will be dropped off outside on the street, which means an auto rickshaw driver in his auto cannot come into the airport. Now, it is a separation, very clearly defined. If a person looked a certain way, wore certain clothes, they will not be allowed in the hotel. I'll give an example which actually told to me. So we were trying to work, it was an art program in north of Chennai, because it has all the stigmas attached to it. And I remember this conversation, and this young man, we were talking about people and having discussion. He looked at me and said, he looked at my tattoo and he said, "Sir, neenga tattoo pota fashion, na tattoo pota jail." This is what he said. And it really, for a second, the way he said it to me is exactly what this is, if you think of it, right? So, I believe art just has to exist, and anybody must be able to come in contact with whatever they do through the process of art, which is why I think tools and skills are also important, right? Which is, I think, where we came in this program. So just to tell you before I finish what we did, we had about 16 facilitators or more. I mean, get the number wrong. Rahi is the person who knows the exact number. Okay, thank God. Okay. We had 22 facilitators. We had visual art, which included sketching, included cyanotype. In fact, we took a block of theirs. There's multiple buildings in Pural, which is Pural Prison 1, which we worked in. There's Prison 2 also. And we in fact converted the entire room, made them paint it with a mural, whatever they wanted, to just change the visual of what a room is within a prison. And there was visual arts, then there was music, multiple kinds of music. There was Ghana music, there was Parayatam, there was Nadaswaram, there was Tawil, there was Carnatic vocal, all this happening. And then we also had a theatre production that was done. The theatre included some kuthu, some dance, some singing, some acting. So it was a group of almost 60 inmates, and we did an audition before that so that we could choose a certain number. Please realize that in a prison like Pural there are about 3,000 inmates. We're looking at a very large number. In Pural 1, I think 1,000 something, if my memory is right. So from that we had to do an audition. Ideally it should be accessible to everybody. But we're also working within a system. So there is always a negotiation with the system that is happening. And the program ran for about 7 to 8 months and culminated with a performance within Pural itself. So this is what happened. And I think the most important part of this showcase is to communicate to the larger world on what is possible. And that you can do things in complicated places by just doing it. And you don't need to go there thinking that you're doing something. I think art is also a conversation. Art is also an exchange. And whether it's the facilitators, whether it's the inmates, and Swami is, actually there's a quote of Swaminathan, one of our facilitators right there, where he said it was lovely to see just the group come together And by the way, we had also women going in as facilitators. Important for me to say, because that's another mindset. It's a male prison. Can a woman go? There were women facilitators who will tell you that they had a jolly good time. They had a great time, and during the performance, cracking jokes and laughing. So only when you go there and not just visit. Visit is such an ugly word. When you actually spend time with people is when I think limitations that are within us kind of crumble. And in some way, if art has a role to play, it is to allow for these limitations to crumble by itself, by just the process of doing and sharing art.
Yeah, like art dissolves boundaries. Yeah, absolutely. I think we should
We should, I think,
do we have 5 minutes for questions?
Yeah, if anybody has a question,